Welcome to Shelf Matters. I'm Jamie McCowan, CEO of Caval, and today we are featuring Dr. Anita Dewi. Anita is a lecturer in information studies at CSU. She's overseeing the workplace learning subjects. Anita, tell us about your background and what led you to where you are today.
Good morning. So it's nice to be here. Yes, I am a CSU lecturer in information studies now, but before that my background is actually I was a practitioner in academic libraries, a couple of academic libraries across some 12 years or so. I started at Monash and then La Trobe.
Our neighbor. And I first met you at La Trobe, and then I ran into you at IFLA in Rotterdam, the very first morning. And the first thing, I don't know if you remember, you asked me, is Caval doing student placements again after COVID? Do you remember this?
Yes.
And I confirmed we were just starting to get back into it because it was a bit confronting when we were asked, and but we did have a good experience earlier this year when we started to get back into things.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
You were still carrying around your poster because you hadn't. Everyone was carrying around posters that morning. And IFLA is a great place to get an international perspective on what's happening. So I would love to hear about the poster, more detail about it, and how it was received at IFLA.
So I have the poster here actually. This poster is actually on my research about placement, library placement particularly, so very relevant to our conversation about Caval taking placement students. I'm looking at library placement as an enabler, as I put it in the title, as an enabler for libraries and librarians in building a sustainable future. It's really speaking to the relevance of, I guess, our graduates or our future graduates in coming into the workplace, real life workplaces. And I'm looking at it from 4 different perspectives. So from our perspective in the university, who provide the education for future librarians, but also you, for example, as a host, it's the industry. What's your expectation of our graduates, and what's your expectation of our placement students coming your way? So it's not a big surprise as well for everyone, but also from the perspective of the students themselves, of course, and plus one more accrediting body.
You in your study, you went into all those perspectives, and did you find an ideal, or the outcome was a recommendation?
Yes, but this is it's actually a preliminary finding that I shared on my poster, because it's part of my second PhD. So at the moment I'm pursuing my second PhD. And my research interest is really on the big umbrella of linking curriculum with workplace. So that's part of it, I guess, in the bigger picture. It's quite interesting finding that I found to date, but it's an ongoing project.
And what's happening internationally in this space? Did others at IFLA?
Yes, they did visit my poster. To be honest, I was a minority, right? Because workplace learning, work integrated learning is often seen as something separate from librarianship. Yes, it's librarianship, it's LIS education. They're connected, but then work integrated learning is seen as something else. So what I'm doing through that poster was marrying the two, I guess, and that got quite a number of interests on site.
Yeah, did you meet people that want to stay connected through your work?
Particularly the ILS, Library and Information Studies educators from Northern Hemisphere. Yeah, because it's very different perspective, I guess, from where we are. I don't know if you're aware of this, that librarians, for example, and because my background is in academic libraries, librarians in academic libraries, some other countries, they are academics.
Yes,
right?
I've heard this.
Yes, whereas for us in Australia, that's not the case now. So, it does give a different flavor. So they're very interested in that conversation.
So Caval is the host organization for these types of placements, and we have seen benefits from the placement process. So usually students come in and they bring a level of enthusiasm that's a bit contagious. Yes. It often connects us with future potential employees, which is a good benefit. And our staff generally love sharing their knowledge. So I think those are the good things. But we are also faced with challenges, thinking, how do we fit this in? Is what we're providing the student the right experience? Do you have recommendations for host organizations to manage those challenges?
Well, I guess just because from my perspective as the educator, when we send placement students out there, we want them to experience the real journey. So just do as you do. And don't, I guess, yes, it does take an effort to supervise and, rather than say it as a burden or as an additional workload, I suppose, because I have been, as I mentioned before, a practitioner before, and in my capacity as, for example, managers or leaders, what was the title, coordinators as well, and a couple of academic libraries, I did look after, if that's the word, or supervise placement students. I don't change the way I operate, and I think students get that learning from that experience, and it does not add something extra for you guys as a, well, at the minimum, as minimum as possible. And that's part of the conversation that I had when I interviewed some people, and hence the poster, was that hosts sometimes they think, oh, well, it's a burden, it's time management issue and all that. But when I dig further, it's more because then they think they have to make something extra, which is not always the case. That's not what the student expect.
So in a way, they're overthinking the whole placement.
They're being too nice.
Okay.
They're being too nice.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of them say, oh, I want to give back to the profession, which is really awesome.
That leads me to the next question, because we were asked recently too for an online placement. Yes, and that for us would be a different than what we've normally done. So with the increased movement to online and working from home, have library placements moved toward a more online direction?
I guess the requests come from our observation as well about what's happening out there in the workplace. Again, this is about linking what we've taught in classrooms. Well, classrooms if it's virtual, because at CSU, for example, the program is fully online, with workplace. And as I understand it, workplaces are now more into hybrid mode. And that's the real workplace atmosphere or situation that our graduates will face when as they finish their study and apply for jobs and all that. So hosting it that way, hosting placement students that way, is really the relevant practice, I suppose. Very recently, not from CAVAL, but I've had a question both from the student and a host organization who's agreed to host my student, for example, asked, is it okay if when working from home, when it's time to work from home on those days, I don't keep an eye on the student all the time. So I'm not expecting you to keep an eye on the student. I think I trust my student enough. And that's part of the practice. And they have to be responsible for that. Hence, at the end of the day, they have to provide placement report to us, but also to review what has happened during placement with their host supervisor. And in the midst way, I usually send them check-in emails, actually placement check-in emails, just to see how things are. And then if there are difficulties and things like that, then we will organize a meeting. Otherwise, if everything goes well, everything goes well.
Yeah, I felt like when we were looking into it, we did get some specific advice on this is how you can manage the supervision, and I think it didn't work out this time, but we would be open to it again. It's anything new, you just have to look at how it's going to work and have a plan. So
I mean, I do understand that host organizations are also transitioning.
Yes.
And we're all learning this, right?
My next question is more about the accrediting bodies, because that's part of one of the stakeholders within your poster. And how do you see they fit into this landscape?
Well, we, as a courses in Australia, there are 3 universities We're providing the education program for librarianship, for example, and or information studies in this case. We're accredited every 5 years. I myself have not been involved in that because I recently just started this role, as I said before. In my capacity as well, I do work closely with our course director and have conversation with the accrediting body around the practices, including the 2 days working outside. Yeah, and it's an accepted practice, I guess. Yeah.
When we employ new graduates, I would say, we do think there is a gap sometimes between what they are taught and what we need them to do at Caval. So there's always a level of training. And I just want to know, do you think that there's this gap between theoretical knowledge and practical experience for aspiring librarians?
Yes, there is a gap. Yes. I'm not going to say no, because if I say no, I'll be lying. But that's exactly where I'm coming from with my research.
Perfect.
I want to see the link between curriculum and making sure that the graduates are relevant with their skills and knowledge. Knowledge-wise, it's probably, yes, we need to keep reviewing and revising our contents, which we've been doing. We're in constant conversation about that. That's why we want to make our students or our graduates relevant to the industry. But the way to make that happen, how we can make that happen, is having constant conversation as well with industry. My background is academic library, but the sector is not just academic libraries, right? We have CAVAL, of course, and then we have public libraries. We have all sorts of, organizations. There are transferable skills, though, that I have to say, that students, by going on placement and by doing, tasks and assessment tasks, I suppose, that we assign students in class, should enable them to translate that when they come into workplace. And the learning how to translate that is through placement, ideally, right? That is usually, and I'm backed by a few research results elsewhere as well, is that the problem is usually not because they don't have the skills, it's because they don't automatically know how to translate these transferable skills. Right. A lot of people use the word soft skills. I'm not a big fan of the term soft skill. I think they are essential skills that students know they have it. They know they have it, but they don't know how to translate that and make that happen.
Is it a confidence thing sometimes as well?
Yes, yes. I mean, part of it is probably, when I talk to students, I always say, look, you have to behave in a professional manner. You have to be, strategic. Yes, you learn as much as you can, but basically, the politeness strategy and all that. Part of it is because, I hope it's not because I'm saying that too much to my student, so that they come to you not confident enough. But I think they do have sometimes difficulty with confidence, particularly with communicating to people in the workplace. Because one of the outcomes, for example, this is not just my students; these are students across Australia that I interviewed for the poster, for example. When I asked, how do you feel, when you do placement? Now I feel comfortable being surrounded by professionals. Okay. So that indicates that before they go on placement, they don't know what they don't know. And it's hard when you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. I think, when they come to Caval, they don't know exactly what to expect. And we definitely see, a level of increased engagement, I would say, by the end, where they were there, and they're absolutely fascinated sometimes by what we do, because they might not know.
Look, the label or the title of organization does not necessarily reflect what's in it. Take academic libraries again. That's my experience. When they come to academic libraries, often the assumption is e-resources or collection. And then librarians who sit outside at the front line, welcoming students coming, or users, library users coming and ask questions, not realizing that there is a significant portion of teaching and learning going on by librarians, for example, and then when they come in, they thought, oh my God, this is part of the profession, this is fun. Some of them say that, but I also had a student who came across that and said, I did not know such thing, and now I am experiencing this, and I now make up my mind that this is not something that I want to do, and that's fine.
Right.
And I mean, that's part of the workplace learning, I suppose.
We had that with our last placements where they felt like they didn't think they liked cataloging until they actually came in and did it. Yeah, and they were like, this is actually quite interesting for me.
One of the students that I interviewed, well, not a student anymore because she's working somewhere else, and I don't have to say where she is now. She did say that she did a placement with you guys at CAVAL, and actually get to the next stage was secure an employment with you. She enjoyed it so much.
That is ideal for us as well, like, because when a student comes in and you can see what they're capable of in a short period of time, and generally the type of work that we do, if it clicks with a person, they can do it. And so I actually think it's that's one of the benefits.
Funny enough, the one of the host organization, when I interviewed them, they say, check before you buy. And I think that's also that's an additional perspective to it.
Absolutely. Some of our most recent student placements restored our faith in the process, because I think we were a bit apprehensive after COVID about starting with student placements. I think just with everything, right? But it went really well, and that is a success story of the student that was employed by CAVAL.
But not only that, we do have a few students actually who then end up securing an employment. But almost every single one, the host organization, I consider this as a success story from the lecturer's perspective, is that the host organizations offer students to become a referee when they. I think that's a big thing. That says a lot.
Yes, that does, because that's not something you can take lightly.
No. I mean, if someone asked me to be a referee, I would say yes, if I know the person really well and work quality-wise, right? And a lot to say about the person. So I think that says a lot.
Do you have any advice for aspiring librarians who are considering undertaking a course that would require a professional placement?
Yes. And I've had questions again in my very limited time as the workplace learning subject coordinator at CSU. I've received quite a few emails coming from very early students, not students who have not yet enrolled in the course, but they're already enrolled, but very early in stage. So quite further away from workplace learning or placement specifically. They ask, if I can get a credit, or I can appeal for what do you call it, RPL before, so I don't need to do placement. And normally what I would come back to them is that I understand there are consequences, particularly financial consequences, because our placement is unpaid placement, for example, right? But please weigh up whether what you will get within the 2 weeks block or 10 working days block for CSU. I know it's slightly different for other universities. Is it worth it for your future career? Where do you want to go after this? Because for CSU's case, quite a lot of our students are already either working in the sector or changing career. From something else. You probably noticed that as well. Yeah. So placement is not about just the hours, adding the hours to your course, but really investigating what's in the sector for you. Although at some point then, there are a few who say, yeah, but I'm already at the managerial level in the sector, and I want to do this study because I need it for my, future career. then that's something else. When you're already in the leadership for some times and you work in the sector for quite a while. I mean, that's how I did my master's degree for librarianship, for example. I do understand that they need to keep going.
With the host organizations, is it mainly academic and public libraries? No.
We have a variety of them. And this is exactly what I've been saying to the students. Look, don't just look at the institution that it has a title, library, or, but look deeper. What's their mission? This is really like a job-seeking journey, right? And that's why part of the self-placement, I guess, background is so that they get the full journey for it. Do investigation, do research what they do. Does the vision and mission and area of operation of this institution, this organization is in line with what you want to do? Because at the end of the day, before they reach out, they have to provide me with 3 professional goals that they want to achieve within that placement period. And when they do that, what they see is not just the organization as a whole, but people who work in the organization who can supervise them, because the requirement is for them to be supervised by qualified information professional. We do have museums, for example, that has library in it. We have archival society. It's interesting the type of organization. So we do have, of course, libraries, public libraries, academic libraries, but we also have CAVAL is one of them. State libraries is another. Hospital libraries, So it's nothing standard, if you like. Yeah.
And can the host organization sort of advertise that they're open to the student placement if there's someone out there that isn't receiving these offers, I guess? Or
Yes. Quite a number of them. Well, the one that is more specialized, I guess, they tend to contact me or contact us. The more general probably have, some of them have a web page where students can sign up. Yeah, and because our placement is a self-placement arrangement at CSU, so students do hunt for these places themselves.
I wonder if there's anything else you want to add that we should know, that we should be considering.
I guess and this applies to me as well. I guess we need to not have assumption over each other and start the conversation really, having it quite intensive, I guess, across the different roles that we play. I am also open to students' suggestions. So sometimes they say, hey, I'm very remote. I'm somewhere that I can't travel. There is only one library in my area, and hence the virtual placement is an option. And that's where conversation between the student and myself, and not myself, but anyone who's coordinating workplace learning at the university program with industry is really, really key to that. Sometimes, and I can only say this because I was in the industry myself, right? I was so hesitant to reach out to the schools and say, oh, I wonder if they take it as, as a positive thing if we give them feedback, or we say, hey, we would like to run placement, but we want it project-based, for example. As simple as that. When I was in the practitioner role, I felt like, oh, should I do that or should I not do that? There is that hesitance. I guess that needs to go away, and we talk more, have conversation more, and that way we keep the students going to placement that is relevant, and hence the profession stays relevant.
Is there a best time to contact when students are planning the placement, or does it happen throughout the year?
Well, CSU, it happens throughout the year. So what happens is we do have, for Bachelor and Master of Information Studies program, we have one subject that is a session long. We don't call it semester, but we call it session. That is a session long, just planning for placement. So this is when students reach out to you guys and, organizing, negotiating placements and all that. And then the next session is when they go on placement. We do also have Master of Education teacher librarianship. Okay. So in a similar way, but then it's a whole year, I suppose, or 2-session subject that composed of placement, and before that, study visit. Not every student has to do study visit. Quite a number of students who do study visits, be it physical study visit or virtual study visits, they end up pursuing placement at the organization. Yeah, because then they have the background.
Are study visits happening as they were? Yes. Okay.
We are planning to do 2 Sydney study visits, 2 Melbourne study visits, a Canberra and a Brisbane. They're all physical study visits, but there are also virtual study visits.
What does a virtual study visit look like?
We usually have multiple hosts, an hour-long talk from the host, and then because again it's a subject, so student will have access to learning management system where the professional, the host, answer questions in there. So yeah, that's like a package, and each student who do decide to go on virtual study visits rather than the physical study visit, they have to attend at least 3. But then each session we provide 8 talks from 8 different people across different
Wow.
Yeah, and they can watch the recording.
Yes.
Yeah, and reflect on that, of course.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's an irrelevant topic that we're very invested in, and I think other people are as well.
Ensuring the relevance of the profession.
Absolutely.
Yeah.